Dietary cholesterol and cardiovascular risk. An in-depth analysis of 4 high cholesterol foods recommended for limitation 1. Introduction. Deconstructing the cholesterol myth and cardiovascular health. Cholesterol, a waxy, fat-like substance, is vital for the structure of all healthy cells in the body. It is essential for producing hormones, vitamin D, and bile acids that aid digestion. However, elevated levels of certain types of cholesterol, particularly low-density lipoprotein, LDL, cholesterol, often referred to as bad cholesterol in the blood, are a major, well-established risk factor for atherosclerosis, the hardening and narrowing of the arteries that leads to cardiovascular disease, CVD, including heart attacks and strokes. While the majority of circulating cholesterol is synthesized internally by the liver, dietary cholesterol intake, particularly when combined with a diet high in saturated and trans fats, can significantly impact blood cholesterol profiles, especially in individuals with a genetic predisposition to hypercholesterolemia. For decades, the focus has been solely on dietary cholesterol, leading to widespread confusion and often incorrect dietary advice. Modern nutritional science clarifies that the primary dietary drivers of harmful blood cholesterol levels are saturated and trans fats, which trigger the liver to produce more cholesterol. Nevertheless, some specific foods contain such exceptionally high concentrations of cholesterol that medical professionals often advise limiting their intake, particularly for middle-aged and older adults, and those already managing high blood cholesterol. The medical consensus emphasizes caution against any single food item exceeding a certain threshold, often considered above approximately 200 milligrams per 100 grams of food, as a marker of high cholesterol content. This extensive analysis will dissect 4 major food categories that concentrate cholesterol to an extent that warrants careful consumption and moderation. 2. The distinction. Dietary cholesterol versus blood cholesterol. It is crucial to differentiate between the cholesterol consumed in food, dietary cholesterol, and the cholesterol measured in the blood, serum cholesterol. Internal homeostasis. Liver is the master regulator of cholesterol, typically producing all the cholesterol the body needs. When dietary intake of cholesterol increases, the liver often reduces its own production to maintain balance. This is why for most healthy individuals, dietary cholesterol has a relatively small impact on blood cholesterol levels. The role of saturated and trans fats. The true culprits that raise the dangerous LDL blood cholesterol are saturated fats and trans fats. These fats stimulate the liver to dramatically increase its synthesis and release of cholesterol. The exception. Hyperresponders and high cholesterol foods. However, a subset of the population, often termed hyperresponders, shows a direct and strong correlation between dietary cholesterol and serum cholesterol. For these individuals, and for anyone seeking to minimize all cardiovascular risk factors, limiting exceptionally high cholesterol foods becomes a sensible precautionary measure. The 4 categories below represent the highest concentrations found in common dietary items. 3. Category 1. Animal brains and neural tissue. The absolute peak animal brains and nervous tissue stand alone as the food source contained the most extreme concentration of cholesterol available in the human diet, far surpassing virtually all other food items. Physiological basis of concentration. Cholesterol is an indispensable component of cell membranes, and it is overwhelmingly concentrated in the brain and nervous system, where it is essential for the structure of myelin sheaths and neuronal signal transmission. When consumed, these tissues deliver an astonishing dose of dietary cholesterol. Extreme concentration. Nutritional studies indicate that a 100-gram serving of various animal brains, such as pig, cow, or goat, can contain cholesterol levels reaching well over 2,000 milligrams, levels that are 10 times or more the concentration found in many other common high cholesterol foods. A single serving of this magnitude can instantly exceed the recommended daily intake guidelines by a vast margin. Health advisory. Given this extreme concentration, consumption of animal brains is strongly advised against by health professionals, especially for individuals already struggling with hypercholesterolium or managing existing cardiovascular risk factors. Restricting this food is a primary preventative step against overloading the body's metabolic system with exogenous cholesterol. Category 2. Organ meats. The metabolic processing center's organ meats, including liver, kidney, and gizzards. Nutritional powerhouses celebrated for their density of vitamins and minerals, but they are also exceptionally high in cholesterol. Their role as the body's metabolic processing and filtering centers explains this high concentration. Cholesterol processing hub, the liver, in particular, is the body's main site for synthesizing, storing, and metabolizing cholesterol when consumed. Animal liver delivers not only high concentrations of valuable micronutrients, but also a significant direct load of cholesterol stored from the animal's own metabolic processes. Concentration profile. A typical 100-gram portion of certain organ meats, such as liver, can contain cholesterol levels approaching or exceeding 300 milligrams. While lower than neural tissue, this concentration is still substantially high. Consumption guidance. Health experts often recommend extreme moderation. For generally healthy adults, consumption should ideally be limited to no more than 2 to 4 small servings per month. For individuals diagnosed with elevated blood cholesterol or existing heart disease, consultation with a physician or dietitian is necessary, and often complete restriction is advised to minimize the dietary component of their cholesterol load. This caution acknowledges the risk of overstressing the liver and the cardiovascular system. 5. Category 3. Egg yolks. The perfect nutritional capsule. Egg yolks are the classic example of a high cholesterol food that has generated decades of controversy and confusion. The debate exists because the egg is a perfect nutritional capsule designed to support the development of a complete organism. Cholesterol density. A single large chicken egg yolk contains approximately 200 to 250 milligrams of cholesterol. This high level is directly necessary to provide the structural building blocks for the developing embryo. Modern consensus and moderation. Current medical research has largely exonerated egg yolks for most healthy individuals. For the average adult without underlying hypercholesterolium, consuming 5 to 7 eggs per week, 1 egg per day, is generally considered safe and even beneficial due to the accompanying high-quality protein, essential vitamins, and beneficial fats. The concern about egg consumption has shifted away from the cholesterol itself and towards what the egg is served with, for example, butter, bacon, and processed toast. Vulnerable populations. However, the caveat remains critical for middle-aged and elderly individuals and those with pre-existing conditions like type 2 diabetes or high blood lipid levels. For these vulnerable groups, a doctor may advise limiting the intake of egg yolks to 2 or 3 yolks per week while encouraging the consumption of egg whites, which are pure protein and contain virtually no cholesterol. This strategy allows the patient to benefit from the protein without adding an excessive amount of dietary cholesterol to a system already struggling with lipid management. 6. Category 4. Roe and caviar. The concentrated reproductive source roe fish eggs and the prized delicacy caviar are highly concentrated sources of nutrients and, consequently, contain exceptionally high levels of cholesterol. Similar to egg yolks, the high concentration is dictated by their biological role as a structural and nutritional reserve for reproductive purposes. High biological concentration. Roe contains high levels of cholesterol to serve as the critical lipid component for cell membrane formation in developing fish. A 100-gram serving of certain types of fish roe can contain approximately 300 milligrams of cholesterol. Omega-3 paradox. Roe often contains very high levels of beneficial omega-3 fatty acids, which are known to support heart health by reducing triglycerides and inflammation. This creates a nutritional paradox. The food is heart healthy due to the omega-3 content, but also high in cholesterol. Consumption guidance. Due to this dual profile, the consumption Advice centers on moderation. While the omega-3s are beneficial, the high cholesterol concentration must be considered, particularly for those with existing cardiac risk. Health professionals advise that the consumption of RO should be limited to small occasional servings, ensuring that the total dietary cholesterol from all sources remains within recommended guidelines. Prioritizing lean, fatty fish, like salmon, which provides the omega-3s with a less concentrated dose of cholesterol, is often the more prudent, consistent dietary choice. Point 7. Conclusion: strategic avoidance for cardiovascular protection. Relationship between dietary cholesterol and cardiovascular disease is nuanced, but the evidence overwhelmingly supports limiting foods with extremely high cholesterol concentration, particularly for individuals in high-risk categories. The 4 categories analyzed: animal brains, neural tissue, organ meats, egg yolks, and raw caviar represent the pinnacle of cholesterol density in the common human diet, while the human body possesses sophisticated mechanisms to regulate internal cholesterol production. Imposing a massive exogenous load through these specific foods places undue strain on the liver and the overall metabolic system, significantly increasing the risk of adverse lipid profiles and accelerating the development of atherosclerosis. By consciously restricting or eliminating these 4 food groups and simultaneously reducing the intake of saturated and trans fats, individuals can take the most effective proactive dietary steps to reduce their blood cholesterol levels, preserve the health of their arteries, and safeguard their long-term cardiovascular well-being.